Mason Reed stood before the mirror in his small bedroom, the white shirt hanging from his fingers like a question. He wasn't sure he wanted answered. At 27, he was an electrical technician for a modest company in the suburbs, just outside Denver. His days were spent crawling through attics, replacing breaker panels, running new wiring through old walls, and bringing light back to houses gone dark. There was honesty in the work. See the problem. Get your hands dirty. Make it right. His life had felt steady in its simplicity. A one-story rental with creaky hardwood floors, a second-hand couch that sagged in the middle, and a coffee maker older than he was. After years of drifting, this quiet routine had begun to feel like enough. Until tonight, he gathered the 3 shirts plain white, charcoal gray, navy blue, and crossed the narrow strip of grass that separated his house from Brooke Sullivan's. The evening air was cool. Carrying the faint scent of maple leaves and distant rain, Brooke opened the door after a long moment. She was 30, just off another brutal shift at the hospital. An oversized gray hoodie swallowed her slender frame, her dark hair tied in a messy bun, and she held a steaming mug of tea, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes looked exhausted, shadowed by sleepless nights and the weight of other people's pain. Yet that small, familiar neighborly smile still curved her lips. "Mason, what's up?" He lifted the shirts awkwardly, feeling suddenly foolish. "I've got a date tonight. First real one in months. Help me choose one that doesn't make me look like I'm trying too hard?" Something flickered across her face quick, sharp, like pain flashing behind her eyes, then disappeared. She stepped aside without speaking. Inside, her house felt warmer than his, softer. The faint scent of lavender lingered in the air. Books were stacked neatly on the coffee table, and the lighting was low and gentle. He laid the 3 shirts across her couch. Brooke approached slowly, her movements tired but deliberate. She touched each fabric in turn, fingers lingering longest on the white one. "This," she said, her voice soft. "Why this one? Because it makes you look real?" He grinned, trying to keep things light. "Real is good, right?" I want her to see I'm serious. Brooke's fingers tightened on the collar of the shirt. The room seemed to shrink around them. She lifted her gaze to meet his, and her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "You're blind." "Mason," she whispered, the words barely audible. "I'm in love with you." The confession hit him like cold water poured straight into his veins. His mouth opened, but no sound came. His heart slammed against his ribs so loudly, he was sure she could hear it. He stood frozen, still clutching the other 2 shirts like useless shield. Regret flooded her expression instantly. "Forget I said that." Her voice cracked on the last word. She turned away quickly, walking toward the front door. "I shouldn't have." "Just go." "Mason, please." The cool evening air rushed in as she held the door open. He walked past her in silence, the grass crunching under his boots, sounding unnaturally loud. The door clicked shut behind him soft. Final. Devastating. Back in his own house, he changed into the white shirt anyway, his mind numb. He drove downtown on autopilot, city lights blurring past the windows. Sienna Park was already waiting at the cozy Italian restaurant. She looked beautiful in a simple black dress, hair down, smiling the moment she saw him. She stood and hugged him warmly. "You look nice," she said. "The white shirt suits you." "Thanks," he replied, forcing a smile. "You look great too." They sat down and ordered. Sienna talked easily about her latest graphic design project. A difficult client? Her roommate's destructive cat. She laughed at her own stories, warm and genuine. He tried to laugh with her. He really did. But every time she leaned forward or asked him a question, his mind drifted back across the grass to Brooke, to the way her voice had cracked when she told him to leave, to the raw vulnerability in her eyes right before she pushed him out. "Earth to Mason," Sienna said gently, waving a hand in front of his face with a playful smile. "You okay? You seem somewhere else tonight." "Sorry," he muttered. "Long day at work. One job ran late." She nodded, but he could tell she didn't fully believe him. Still, she carried the conversation. Halfway through dinner, she set her fork down and looked at him seriously. "Mason, if you're not feeling this tonight, it's okay to say so. I won't be mad." Guilt twisted sharply in his chest. Sienna was kind. Funny? Clearly interested. She didn't deserve to sit across from a man whose mind was trapped next door. He apologized again, offering vague excuses. They finished the meal politely, split the bill, and walked out to the parking lot. Her quick hug felt like absolution he hadn't earned. The drive home felt endless when he turned onto their quiet street lined with maple trees. Brooke's house was completely dark. No porch light. No sign of life. He parked in his driveway and sat in the car for a long time, staring at her front door. The silence pressed against him, like a physical weight, an aching hunger for the easy warmth he had taken for granted. He hadn't realized how much her quiet presence had filled the empty spaces in his life until it was gone. The next 3 days were worse than silence. Her car remained in the driveway, but she stayed invisible. No lights turned on at normal hours. No sound from her house. No texts. No waves across the yard. He sent one message on Sunday night. "Brooke, you okay?" No reply. By Tuesday, the deprivation had become physical. He missed not just a neighbor, but her, the calm confidence in her posture, the way she remembered small things, the safe rhythm they had shared without ever naming it. The loneliness he once called peace now felt like starvation, a deep hollow ache beneath his ribs that no amount of work or distraction could fill. That evening, he stopped at their favorite coffee shop and ordered her usual oat milk latte. Extra shot, no foam. He drove home, parked, and walked across the grass. He set the cup on her welcome mat with no note. The next morning, the cup was gone. Still no message. Still no sign she was ready to face him. The hunger gnawed deeper with every passing hour. By Saturday evening, he could no longer stand the silence. It had become heavier than any words. He crossed the grass for the second time that week. Steps heavier, heart pounding louder than before. He knocked, without rehearsing what he would say. It took longer than usual for her to answer. When the door finally opened, Brooke looked exhausted and fragile. Eyes red and puffy from crying, oversized hoodie and sweatpants, hair loosely tied back. She stared at him for a long second. Surprised and wary, "Mason, can I come in? Just for a minute?" She hesitated, arms wrapped protectively around herself, then stepped aside. Inside, the usual warmth felt muted. Papers were scattered on the coffee table. A half-empty mug of tea sat cold. They sat on the same couch, where he had shown her the shirts only days earlier. The silence between them was thick, charged with everything unsaid. "I shouldn't have said it," she whispered first, voice barely above a breath. "I saw your face and knew I'd ruined everything." "I'm sorry." "You didn't ruin anything?" he said quickly. "You just caught me completely off guard. I didn't know what to say then, and I still don't know exactly what to say now. But I know I don't want to pretend it never happened." She looked down at her hand, fingers twisting together tightly. "I've felt this way for a while, longer than I should have. I told myself it was stupid you're younger. You're my neighbor. You. But every time you came over to fix something, every time you brought my mail or smiled at me across the yard, it got harder to ignore." Her breath trembled. "I didn't plan to say it that night. It just came out, and when I saw how shocked you were, I panicked. I thought if I pushed you away fast enough, maybe we could pretend and go back to how things were. I don't want to go back," he said quietly. Her eyes lifted, searching his face with painful intensity. "Then what do you want?" "Mason." The question hung in the air like a live wire. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of honesty pressing on his chest. "I don't know exactly what I feel yet. I'm not going to lie and say I'm in love with you right now. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. But these last days without seeing you or hearing from you, they felt wrong, empty. I kept thinking about you, about how safe it feels just being around you, about the small things you do that make this street feel less lonely. I realized I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you." Brooke's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she fought them back. "I'm older than you. My life is complicated, long, draining shifts, emotional baggage I've carried for years. I can't offer you something simple or easy. I don't even know if I can offer anything healthy right now. I'm not asking for simple or easy," he replied, voice steady. "I'm asking for real, if you'll let me. I want to try, slowly, no pressure, no expectations, just us figuring it out, one day at a time." She remained quiet for a long moment, the silence stretching until it felt almost unbearable. Then she gave a small, exhausted nod. "Okay, no hug, no kiss. Just the fragile beginning of something neither was ready to name as he stood to leave." That night, lying on his couch, staring at the ceiling, the hunger returned stronger than before. It wasn't just missing conversation or company. It was a deep, physical longing for her warmth, for the way her presence made the empty spaces inside him feel less vast. He pressed a hand to his chest as if he could push the ache down, but it only settled deeper. The next evening, her text came, simple and tentative. "If you're not busy, pizza tonight. Nata." He stared at the message for a long minute before replying, "No olives. I'll bring drinks. Dad." When he knocked an hour later, she opened the door looking slightly more relaxed, though the tension still lingered in her shoulders. She wore an old college hoodie and jeans, hair tied back loosely. They ate on the couch with the pizza box open between them, a random movie playing on the TV that neither paid much attention to. Conversation started safe her shift. His difficult customer, the neighbor down the street who never brought in his trash cans, but slowly it drifted deeper. At one point, her hand brushed his when she reached for the remote. Neither pulled away. The contact lingered, warm and deliberate. Her breathing changed subtly. His did too. The air between them thickened, heavy with unspoken desire held tightly in check. "Slow," she whispered later, almost to herself, when the closeness began to feel dangerous. He nodded, but the restraint hurt as sweet, aching pressure building beneath the surface of calm. That became their new rhythm. Some nights, she texted after a long shift. Other nights, he knocked with beer or takeout. They watched old movies, shared food, talked until the sky outside turned black, shoulders brushed more often. Gazes dropped to lips, then slowly returned, heavier each time. Hands rested close enough that moving away would have been a deliberate rejection. Every small touch felt like a test of how long they could stay near the edge without falling. One Friday night she texted, "Come over. I don't want to be alone tonight." Dim dim the. When he arrived, she was already curled on the couch in her hoodie. Blanket over her legs, no movie, just quiet. Eventually, her head found its way to his shoulder. This time she didn't lift it. He slid his arm around her slowly, feeling the heat of her body through the thin fabric. Her breathing deepened against his chest. The closeness was deliberate, sustained. Neither spoke. The restraint felt almost unbearable. The urgent pressure of desire contained beneath calm exteriors. Every inch of contact, threatening to crack their careful control. They fell asleep like that, fully clothed, bodies aligned, but boundaries intact. When he woke hours later, her warmth was still pressed against him, leaving him raw and aching in the quiet dark. Weeks passed in that slow, burning dance. One particularly rough night, she came home late, shoulders heavy. He saw her car pull in after midnight and waited 10 minutes before crossing the yard, and knocking softly on her back door. She opened it still in her scrubs, hair falling out of its bun, eyes red-rimmed from crying. She looked at him for a long second, then stepped aside without a word. They sat on the couch in the dim light of a single lamp. She curled into herself, knees pulled up. When the sobs finally broke free, he moved closer and gently pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, body shaking with deep, exhausted grief. His hand moved slowly along her back, the other resting in her hand, shared heat, barely touching limbs that could so easily entwine further. The terrifying ease with which comfort could become something more. He held the line. She didn't ask him to cross it. I'm scared. Mason, she whispered against his shirt, voice muffled and broken. Scared that I don't deserve this, that I'm too broken, that I'll drag you down with all the weight I carry. You're not broken, he said quietly, thumb gently brushing a tear from her cheek. You're tired. There's a difference. She pulled back just enough for their faces to be inches apart. Their breath mingled in the small space between them. Silence stretched, thick and electric. Her gaze dropped to his mouth, lingered, then slowly returned to his eyes. The pull was gravitational, urgent, invasive, testing every defense they had built. Neither moved away. The air felt alive with the ache of restraint. I choose you, he said, voice low and steady. Not because I feel sorry for you, not to fix you. I choose you because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. Brooke rested her forehead against his, eyes closed, breathing shaky. I choose you too, she whispered. Even if I'm scared, even if it's slow, I choose you. They stayed like that until the first light of dawn crept through the windows. No kiss, no further movement, just the raw, trembling edge of near surrender held back by sheer will and the fear of breaking something precious. One quiet Sunday morning, they sat on her porch with fresh coffee, sunlight filtering through the maple trees. She reached over and took his hand, threading her fingers slowly through his. The touch was deliberate, warm, full of quiet promise. I don't need big promises, she said softly. I just need to know you're choosing me every day. I am, he told her. And I will. She smiled, the first real smile he had seen in weeks, and it reached her eyes. Two houses stood side by side on a quiet street outside Denver. Two porch lights stayed on late into the night. Between them, two people who had once been strangers learned how to choose each other, not with grand gestures or rushed passion, but with small, steady steps and the painful, beautiful restraint of holding back when every part of them wanted to let go. The hunger remained, the ache of closeness without crossing remained, and in that tension, something real and fragile began to grow.